I'm going to be going over this extremely big NBA slate for this evening. I'm going to be doing this solo, but in keeping with Bobby's wants and desires, I am going to try to go game by game and get through all of this. Just a big slate leading into Thanksgiving, where there's going to be no basketball Thursday, and then pretty interesting setup on Friday where you have some day games followed by I think a pretty big night slate. I am going to be going live at 6, where I'm going to hopefully do some lineup builds and some late stuff, but I'm only going to be around until about 6:30. So unfortunately, we have that. Just a couple of other announcements. We have, well, let's pull up SaberSim. I'm going to be going live with Bobby tomorrow at 11 to talk about the Thanksgiving football slate. And then at Friday, at some point, I'm going to do an NFL preview for the weekend. In addition to that, I might do a hockey thing today. Maybe I'll do a live sweat late tonight. There's a lot of stuff that I'm planning on doing. Just not exactly sure what I can actually get to. All right, let me share my screen, and then we will get going. Okay, let me pull up my projections, and I also have some notes as well. And sorry, get those up. So I will show like my early projections just to kind of give you a sense for what the slate rates to look like. There's going to be a lot of change, a lot of stuff going on. But if you look at this, if you look by points per dollar, you see nobody at this point is rated higher than 6x. But I think that's obviously by the nature of statistics just going to change. Like right now, you see the top value is going to be this Tijane Saloon at 20 points at 3,500, but there's no like incredible kind of standout play, which is interesting. What is kind of interesting is to see LaMelo Ball, even though he's at 10,000 ratings, as such a high point per dollar play, and also showing up not unexpectedly at the top of the overall Sheets value score list. So expect to see quite a bit of LaMelo Ball. And it's funny, you get a sneak peek at my early builds, and you do get like 23% LaMelo right off the bat. And then you'll also see, and we'll go game by game in a minute, initial builds getting like a huge amount of Demi Avdija, Zubac. You see that 74, 73, 66%. Like these four guys, Avdija, Zubac, Saloon, and Miles Turner, are picking up a lot of my ownership here. All right, let's go back, I guess, game by game. I guess we'll just start with Chicago and Orlando. First, let me take a look at some notes for just a minute. Let me just see. Chicago and Orlando. Let me just see any injuries. Patrick Williams is not playing. I think Lonzo Ball is supposed to get in a little bit today for Chicago. It's interesting. What else? Orlando, there's Palace still out. Wendell Carter Jr. might be back. Don't expect him to play a full complement of minutes, though. And then we have, to deal with Franz Wagner, who just continues to smash, with the exception of the last game, where he didn't do much until the second half, in which case he then decided to go off. So Franz Wagner, he is showing up as the second highest Sheets value score play, 9,700. So you have to consider that in play here. You look at points per dollar, I don't really see all that much. Nothing from, literally nothing from Chicago at all. I wonder why that is. Hang on. Do I even have them projected? Yeah, I mean, I have them projected, but for whatever reason, they're not showing up as particularly good plays this time. So it looks as though, for me, it's just going to be some, well, let's look at these by projection, I guess. I mean, it's mostly Franz Wagner, but then, again, curiously, you look at the actual builds, and I'd be getting about 27% Jonathan Isaac. So I wonder why that is. I mean, I have him 18-point projection and only 5.2x, so it is kind of strange. But as I've mentioned before, this price range, 4,300, is very precious. And if you can get decent plays at the 4,300 level, it's probably worth doing. And it's why he's showing up in quite a bit of lineup. So it is definitely something to consider. All right, Clippers against Washington. And feel free to put some comments in. I do have the chat box open so that I should be able to see some of this. Clippers against Washington. First, a couple of things to mention. Not really too much. It looks like everybody is in. Norman Powell, I imagine, remains out. Okay, so Poole was out yesterday, and they have him listed as questionable today. And obviously, his status is going to be a primary driver of the other guys' projections because of his high usage rate. Keontae George started last time Poole was out, so we have to take a look at that. Who else? Sarr, Kispert, like both these guys, if Poole is out, are going to look pretty good. And I wonder who else is going to look good. So right now with Clippers, Washington, we'll take a look at what I'd be getting. And as I mentioned, I'm getting a whole bunch of Zubac at center for the Clippers. I have him at a full 73% if I were to play 50 lineups. So that I did not. Now, this is a build that does not do min uniques filtering, so it's literally going to give me like 53 best sim plays. So it's possible when I go min uniques 2, 3, 4 or something like that, Zubac might be a little less owned, but yet still, he is rating to be a very strong play. Alongside Harden, I'm getting a decent amount of, and Poole, if he plays, and I haven't projected to play right now, I'm getting a decent amount of him too. But Zubac looks to be my highest owned guy on the slate. And if you look at it, based on my projections, it's not surprising. He's rated to be the second highest point per dollar play. And at 7K, it's going to show up quite a bit, quite a bunch of lineups. So again, watch for the news for Jordan Poole. That is going to be important. And hopefully we have that by the time I go on at 6 o'clock. All right, Atlanta against Cleveland. Again, this is going to be more in-depth than usual. Trae Young with the Q tag. So that's something to keep an eye on. Cleveland still have LeVert out. Ty Jerome's been doing well. Let's take a look at, first of all, you want to look at the projections first? Let's look at straight ownership first. So I am getting like 15% Ty Jerome in my first set of runs here, and very little of anybody else in this game. Like 12%, maybe Garland, 10% Donovan Mitchell, Bogdan. So it looks as though this game is not a huge priority, but I'm definitely getting at least a market rate on most of these guys. When you look at the actual projections, that nobody's really showing up as that great of a play, which is, it justifies the conclusion that I'm not going to have too much of anything. But Ty Jerome at 15%, I think that is a very, that's a healthy bit of ownership for him. All right, Miami and Charlotte. Now, I had mentioned already the Tisdale Salon as well as LaMelo Ball, and I'm getting quite a bit of both of them. In addition to that, Brandon Miller, still getting 36% of him. Really not getting much of anybody on Miami, like one lineup maybe with Tyler Hero, but that's it. Let's take a look at some questionables, some notes. Again, these are just things to keep in mind as we go through this. Do I not have anything on that? Miami, Charlotte, I should. Let me just see. Mavericks. Hang on. I thought I had notes on that. Yeah, so Drew Smith out. Terry Rozier came off the bench last night. Something to keep in mind. Charlotte, all those guys remain out. So I think the usual Charlotte guys, Miller and Ball and Diabate are going to look good, but the Salon is really just popping right now. Is a huge bit of my lineup. So we'll have to take a look and make sure that these projections hold during the course of the day. But right now, he's very strong. And then you see Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, and really nobody from Miami. Houston, Philly. So you look at overall exposures right now. Fred VanVleet, market rate pretty much. And then once again, I'm getting a decent amount of this Jabari Smith. He just remains pretty cheap here. We'll look at the actual projections and see if that's the case. By the way, you see Diabate, Salon, I mentioned before, Brandon Miller from the previous game. Yeah, Jabari Smith at 4,700 is LaMelo. Jabari Smith looks very, very reasonable here at 4,700. Fred VanVleet. So these two guys are looking pretty good. Let's look at if there are any notes on this game that I could figure out. Really nothing on the Rockets side. Philly, I haven't played anybody from here in a long time. Just everybody seems to be the same. Embiid is out. Paul George out. If you want to go play Yabusele or Drummond again, I guess you can, but I'm not really getting any of that. All right, Portland, Indiana. Let's first go, I guess, to the projections. So I mentioned earlier, Identity Avdia showing up in a whole bunch of my lineups, and him being the third overall point per dollar play is kind of one of the reasons for that. And then you'll see also Miles Turner showing up top 5 value. So Avdia and Turner, both from the same game, certainly make a lot of sense. You see here 92% of my lineups right now would have Denny Avdia, followed by Miles Turner. Then you get some value in this Delano Banton. He's not showing up too much. Oh, actually, he is. He's the top 10 value over here, so that makes some sense. Let's take a look at notes here, if I have any. Not really. Robert Williams was out. Okay, so Robert Williams is out and Klingon is out? So I guess the idea, and also Grant being doubtful, I guess the concept is that maybe they play Denny Avdia as the 5. And that would make for a very, very strong situation for him. Jabari Walker played yesterday, I think, when Robert Williams came out. So he might – I'm not really getting a projection on him, but I think he's somebody that we have to look at here. So I'm only projecting for 15 fantasy points right now. What's his price? 4,000? That's Jaross Walker. Jabari Walker, I'm only getting a 9-point projection. I don't know about that. I think that, he started for Robert Williams, I think, in the second half. So if that's the case, just watch for some bizarre starting lineups here. If you get Jabari Walker starting at 4,100, that's going to be very appealing. Okay. Moving on, we have Knicks against Orlando. I mentioned, we don't have that many more games. Amazing. Knicks against, no, not Orlando. I'm sorry. We had Where did Chicago and Atlanta? I meant Knicks versus Dallas. Knicks versus Dallas. I don't think. Let me check my news. Luka is out as usual. Lively questionable. I guess opening up for Gafford, I suppose. Clay, I think it remains questionable. We don't know. Grimes. Okay, so he was out in the last game too. So we have to watch for the Dallas guys. And if they're out, then you still got. Then you have to deal with the same guys from yesterday. That being the other day. That being Jaden Hardy, guys like that. Like right now, I'm getting a full 35% PJ Washington. But again, watch for the news on this one. And it's kind of one of those buried games at 7:30, which people might not pay attention to. It's the only game starts at 7:30. So what people might do is they'll make it very complacent when they put their lineups in for 7. And then some news can come from that Dallas game about maybe somebody starting that would give them a really, really big projection that you'd want to play, like Dinwiddie or Wright, or Hardy for that matter. But right now, I am getting a good amount of PJ Washington. Knicks side, really not getting much of anything. Okay, moving on. Toronto against New Orleans. Take a look at the news there. Same guys remain out. Davion Mitchell got the start. Played 30 minutes in his last game. I'll see if that does anything. New Orleans, the entire United States is out. Oh, but you get Elf Payton, who had a kind of a career game with 21 assists. Is that DeJounte Murray? Who's going to be back? Hold on. Yeah, DeJounte Murray is going to be back, but with a minutes limit. Okay. So I think that will take Elf out of play. I hope so. I would say I hope so, but I think that's the case. But we'll just continue to take a look at that. Right now, really, I don't think I'm getting much of anybody from New Orleans. Yeah, literally zero exposure. And as far as Toronto goes, almost nothing. When we take a look at the projections, bears that out as well. But just confirm what I think is the case. DeJounte Murray is playing, and if you get him playing and McCollum playing and Ingram playing, like for that matter, Ingram questionable, then I think the whole team becomes unplayable. All right, moving on. Just a couple more games here. You have Detroit against Memphis. I am getting a decent amount of exposure to these guys. Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, Desmond Bane from this game. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more. Projection-wise, they don't look that great. But I guess, again, those price tags kind of make up for that. Let's take a look at again, some notes. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. Cade remains doubtful, right? Tobias is questionable, so we have to look out for that. So if Tobias is out, then you have other guys that might play, like Thompson again, might play more. Memphis side, Edey remains out. Ja is out this time. Vince Williams is out. Scottie Pippen, I don't have much of a projection on. I would imagine that he would look sort of decent, but right now I don't really see that. So I'm getting to Tobias, Beasley, and Bane as top guys. And yeah, Eric, I went over this a little earlier. I'm getting like a full 70% of Zubac right now. I don't, so I presume he's going to be very popular if I'm getting to that also. But I am with you. All right, just 2 more games here. You have Sacramento against Minnesota. As far as ownership, I'm really not getting much of anything from either side here. So let's take a look at the projections and see what I might be missing. Really not much. Just it's a big slate, and these guys just don't project well. That's the best I can say. I'm going to go into my injury notes, see if there's anything to keep an eye on. I mean, you do have DeRozan out. You know, if DeRozan is out, I mean, you'd think that, I don't know, some of these guys should get some kind of bonus. In Minnesota, Conley missed. We'll watch for that, I suppose. And Eric, you're asking what my ownership is on Zubac right now. Yeah, I only have him at 21% owned. I don't know how much more it's going to go though, just because of the pure size of the slate. You know, I think it's possible that he's less than 20, or that he's around 20. What do I know? We'll look at it later. All right, and in the last game of the night, well, as far as the DraftKings slate, you have Lakers against San Antonio, and oddly, I'm not getting much of anything. You'd think I'd want to get some Wemby or something, but right now the only guys I'm getting even slivers of are Stephon Castle and Chris Paul. Let's take a look at the projections here. I mean, yeah, I guess not. I guess I don't really need to get to any of that. I mean, Wemby certainly looks reasonable. Anthony Davis certainly looks reasonable, but again, for some reason, once I start running these things, it's just not getting me there. Let me take a look real quick at FanDuel to see if what's going to go on from those later games. I think the 2 games. Yeah, so, well, you get 3 games. You get Brooklyn, Phoenix, Denver, Utah, and Oklahoma City. May as well do those games while we're here. All right, so in Brooklyn, Phoenix game, I'm really not getting much of anything. Very small exposures, but let me just take a look at the notes here. Cam Thomas is out. So Thomas out, I mean, that wouldn't be so bad. Jalen Williams played like 49 minutes last game, something like that. But just not getting them right now. KD and Beal, I think they are questionable. They're on back-to-backs. I don't know. Take a look. If either of them sit, then you can play the other one. All right, so FanDuel. All right, so FanDuel has Denver. So that means that Jokic is in play, right? So they have all these guys in play. Yeah, I am getting a full 27% of Jokic on FanDuel. And then no real notes there. Clarkson missed, sat last night. See if he sits again. And then the last game of the night, Oklahoma City against Golden State. Wow, I'm getting 47% of Jalen Williams. It's kind of an odd guy to get so much of, right? Some $8,900 FanDuel player. But that's where I am. You still have Chet out, Caruso out. So this is interesting. So on FanDuel, you could have this late night hammer here between Jalen Williams, Draymond Green coming back from Golden State. Kuminga remains questionable. Steph is questionable. I don't know. Again, this could be anything because remember, Thanksgiving's tomorrow. It's possible these guys just sit, just go home. I don't know. So keep an eye on it. So I think I did go through every game. And at the same time, I did touch on exposures as well. But as you guys know, I mean, the NBA is I'm doing this because I'm doing it. Give you guys a sense of what to expect tonight. But really, the whole slate, the whole slate is determined between 6 and 7 o'clock, pretty much. And then if you really want to play well, you'll stick to it throughout the night and deal with all the late swap issues that could come up. But hopefully this gives you at least a sense for what the slate could look like. And at 6 o'clock, or maybe a few minutes before, I'll come on because I know I have to leave at 6:30 sharp tonight. Stay tuned. I might do an NFL preview. I might do an NHL preview. But those will be recorded. I don't think those will be streamed. And I guess that's pretty much it. Eric, the slate feels smaller than it